The following is a video presentation of your operator's manual designed to make the operation of your K-7500 machine easy and efficient. For your convenience, it is divided into the following segments so you can quickly find what you need. Maintenance, machine setup, proper tool selection, operating instructions, draining water from the drum, auto-feed adjustment procedure, drum assembly removal and installation, disassembling the drum, pigtail removal and installation, adding additional cable, special applications procedure, loading the machine onto a vehicle. Machine maintenance tips. Your K-7500 requires minor regular maintenance to ensure dependable operation when you need it the most. The auto-feed mechanism has several moving parts, including the bearings, the roller holders, and the actuator assembly. This assembly should be cleaned and greased with any good bearing lubrication about once every 3 months. It can be cleaned easily with a good parts cleaning solution. There are grease fittings that should be greased regularly. The auto-feed has a grease fitting on each one of the roller housings as well as the actuator. There is also a grease fitting in the back of the drum that keeps the main drive shaft lubricated. When cleaning the auto-feed, it should be rinsed with water after each use. Do not use spray lubricants such as WD-40 as they tend to remove the lubricant through evaporation. Every couple of weeks, it is a good idea to check all the nuts and bolts on the machine to make sure they are tight. Also inspect the GFCI line cord for defects and proper operation. Periodically check the handle bottom to assure the cotter pins are in place and the T-knobs are tightened. Your cable will function much better if it is lubricated on a regular basis. RIDGID's cable rust inhibitor is ideal for helping prevent the premature failure of cable caused by rust. Regular application will significantly increase the life of your cables and assists with ease of operation. Machine setup. Raise the stair climber to the upper position by pulling out the locking pin and lifting the stair climbers by the cross member until the pin locks into the upper position. Insert the handle through the motor table rail supports and through the 2 holes on the rear support. Insert the 2 hairpin cotter fasteners through the holes in the bottom of the handles. Adjust the handles to the desired height and securely tighten the 2 T-shaped mounting knobs on the rear support. Now lower the stair climber. The main drive V-belt drives the drum from a motor pulley. To secure the belt in the proper location, position the belt on the pulley. Push down on the motor table and slip the V-belt onto the drum. Release the motor table and hand spin the drum a few times. The belt will self-adjust on the proper drum alignment. Install the belt guard and tighten the nuts and bolts. Check the belt guard to ensure that it avoids contact with the drum when the drum is rotating. Reposition the guard if necessary and tighten the bolts. The gap between the belt guard and drum should not exceed 1/2 an inch. To install the auto-feed, loosen the knob on the top bearing housing, slide the power feed onto the cable, and rest it on the front post. Secure the power feed by tightening the T-shaped knobs. Do not remove bands or staples from the cable shipping carton. Retrieve the end of the cable through the center hole of the carton and remove enough cable to connect it with the drum pigtail. Connect the cable to the pigtail by sliding the cable couplings together and turning the screwdriver slot in the coupler 180 degrees. Now manually feed the cable into the drum. If you have enough space available, the other cable loading option is to stretch your cable out and feed the cable into the machine using the auto feed. Proper tool selection. When selecting the proper tool, a good rule of thumb is to make the first pass with either a spear blade or blade cutter that is 2 inches smaller than the drain size. It is generally a good practice to get the water flowing first with a small blade. Once you have flow, continue running water while you increase the size of the cutters you run. For additional passes, larger tools may be used depending on the conditions inside the drain. However, tools should generally be at least 1 inch smaller than the drain size. The style of the tool is determined by the nature of the job and is left to the discretion of the operator. Flexible leaders should be used to negotiate bends and traps in lines. Operating instructions. Position the drum machine within 3 feet of the sewer inlet. Set the kickstand bar by first releasing the bar from the retaining spring. This can best be done by using your foot to push down on the bar. Then tilt the machine forward to allow the bar to pivot behind the tires. The tires should not contact the ground. Warning: the machine should rest firmly on the kickstand bar before operating the machine. Position the air foot switch pedal for easy accessibility. Select and install the proper tool on the end of the cable. Make sure the forward, off, reverse switch is in the off position. Plug the power cord into a properly grounded receptacle. Keep all electrical connections dry and off the ground, and never touch the plug with wet hands. Test the GFCI for proper operation before using the machine. Loosen the feed knob to ensure the auto feed is not engaged. Manually pull a sufficient length of cable out of the drum to start the tool and cable into the sewer inlet. When using the auto feed, turn the feed knob down until the front bearing makes contact with the cable. Then turn 1 full additional turn. Do not over-tighten. Move the forward off reverse switch into the forward position. For manual feed, exert sufficient downward pressure on the cable to keep it in the sewer line while depressing the air foot switch pedal to start the cable rotating. To use the auto feed, move the feed lever to the advance position to feed the cable. The rate at which the cable is fed into the sewer is controlled by the position of the clutch handle assembly. The further from the vertical position, the faster the feed rate. Always keep one hand on the cable to feel the tension. Please note that a 3/4 inch inner core cable is not recommended for use through P-traps and sewer bends in lines smaller than 4 inches. Continue to feed the cable into the line until resistance or obstruction is encountered. The condition will generally become apparent to the operator as the motor will lug down and or the cable will have a tendency to twist sideways in the operator's hands. If the cable shows signs that the cutter has stopped rotating, move the feed lever to the vertical or neutral position and use quick, strong jerks, pulling back on the cable to free the cutter. Pull sharply on the cable to free the cutter and relieve the load on the cable. Slowly advance the cable back into the obstruction. Repeat this process until the obstruction is clear. Remember, make sure the cutter is rotating at all times, and refrain from forcing the cable when the cutter is lodged in a blockage. If the cable shows signs of loading or the cutter stops rotating, Immediately take action by pulling the cable back from the obstruction for both manual and auto feed operations. Forcing through a blockage can cause problems such as getting hung up in roots or snapping a cable. Several passes in badly blocked drain lines are recommended. To retrieve the cable from the sewer line, move the power feed handle to the retrieve position. If manual feed is used, pull a foot or two of cable out of the drain each time and feed back into the drum. The machine should be kept running during the process for thorough cleaning and to assist in laying the cable back into the drum. A continuous flush of water should be used to clean the cable and tool as they are retrieved. When the tool is just inside the sewer inlet, release the air foot switch pedal and allow the machine to come to a complete stop. Turn the on-off switch to the off position. Never retract the tool from the sewer inlet while the cable is rotating. If auto feed was used, loosen the feed knob and pull the remaining cable and tool from the sewer. Hand feed the cable into the machine and rinse the cutter with water. Disengage the kickstand by tilting the machine forward and pushing the bar forward of the tires. A firm push or kick of the bar as you tilt the machine forward will return the bar into the kickstand holder. Draining water from the drum. To drain water from the drum, orient the drum so the drum hole in the back is down. Remove the plug. Lay the machine on its back and water will drain. When finished, reinstall the plug. Adjusting the auto feed for different size cable. The K-7500 auto feed comes from the factory set up to run the cable size you selected for your machine. If the job requires changing a different size cable, the auto feed can be adjusted to accommodate the change. Put the power feed handle in the vertical position. Remove the top bolt on one of the lower roller holder housings. Slightly loosen the lower bolt. Pivot the bearing holder housing downward until the actuator pin is free of the actuator plate. The housing will pivot easier if the bolts on the top bearing holder housing are loosened slightly. Unscrew the actuator pin and then remove the bearing holder from the housing. If you are changing from a 3/4 inch to a 5/8 inch cable, insert 2 spacer washers into the bottom of the housing. If you are changing from a 5/8 to a 3/4 inch cable, remove the 2 spacer washers in the bottom of the housing. If you start with 11/16 inch cable, then either add 1 spacer for 5/8 inch settings or take out 1 spacer for 3/4 inch settings. Now insert the bearing holder into the housing and replace the actuator pin. Pivot the housing back into place, making sure the actuator pin engages the slot on the actuator plate. Insert and tighten the bolts. Grease all bearing housings via the grease fittings. Drum assembly removal and installation. To remove the drum assembly, make sure the machine is off. Set the kickstand and remove the auto feed assembly. Push down on the motor table handle to release belt tension and slip the belt off the drum. At the back of the machine, remove the rear support bolt located in the center of the rear support. The assembly can now be removed by grasping the drum via the holes on the drum front and sliding the assembly off the mounting boss. To install the drum, lay the machine on its back. Lower the drum assembly onto the frame, lining up the casting hole onto the mounting boss. Holding the drum in place, raise the machine to the upright position. Replace the rear mounting bolt and secure tightly. Press down on the motor table and slip the belt onto the drum. Disassembling the drum. To get inside the drum assembly, you will have to remove the inner drum. It is easier if the drum assembly has been removed from the machine. Loosen the set screw on the knurled nut and remove the nut. If the area is corroded, it may require slightly spreading the knurled nut with a screwdriver while prying it off. A spray lubricant can also be used. The guide tube is not held in place with any other clips or bolts. The bearing in the center of the guide tube rests on the drum shaft. Remove the guide tube inner drum assembly, leaving the cable in the drum. If it does not easily come off, use a spray lubricant and let sit for several minutes. If the rear drum support is damaged and needs replaced, it can be easily replaced by removing the series of bolts on the back of the drum support. Prior to removing the drum support, remove the inner drum and all cable for better access. Replacing the cable pigtail or drum leader. Your pigtail, often called a drum leader, is a tension-wound length of cable that your sewer cable attaches to. It is anchored inside the large drum with a clamp and bolt. Remove all cable from the drum except for the pigtail. Remove the power feed assembly, guide tube, and inner drum. Remove the bolt anchoring the pigtail on the back of the drum. Remove the pigtail from the drum and insert the new pigtail into the drum. Align the hole in the pigtail fastener with the hole in the back of the drum. Remember which direction the old pigtail was wound into the drum when replacing it with a new one. Putting it in backwards may damage the new pigtail or your cable. Adding additional cable for longer drains. There are 3 ways to add cable to your machine if your cable is not long enough. First, after running out all your cable from the original machine, get a second machine with the same size cable and connect the cable in the drain to the second machine. The second way is to carry a spare drum full of cable. Remove the empty drum and replace it with the second drum. Connect the cable in the drain and continue running cable. The third way is to keep a spare cable in a tire in your vehicle. Tie a rag on the end of the cable so you can easily find the end. Pull all the spare cable out of the tire and connect it to the pigtail. Feed your cable back into the machine, connect the cable in the drain, and continue running cable. Note of caution: when running more than 100 feet of cable, be sure to spin the cable long enough to get the blade turning before attempting to advance the cable. Advance the cable slowly and work the cable back and forth with every advance in distance. You can get in trouble quickly working long distances because of the few seconds it takes for the warning signals to get back to you. Know how far you need to go. Running too much cable is unnecessary and can damage your equipment. Overrunning cable too far into a sewer main or septic tank can allow cables to knot up and prevent their return through traditional means. Special Applications Procedure. Running the machine in reverse will cause premature failure of the cable. Use reverse only to free a tool caught in an obstruction. If your cable gets hung up, immediately remove your foot from the air foot switch pedal and allow the machine to come to a complete stop. Place the forward off reverse switch to reverse. If the machine has automatic feed, loosen the feed knob. Grasp the cable with gloved hands and pull while tapping the air foot pedal. When the tool is dislodged and the drum has stopped rotating, place the switch in forward and follow the normal operating procedure. Loading the machine onto a vehicle. The stair climber can be raised from the lower position, used to move the machine up and down stairs, to the upper position to assist in loading the machine onto truck beds or into vans. To place the stair climber in the upper position, raise the stair climber by pulling out the locking pin and lifting the cross member until the pin locks into the upper position. Tip the machine backwards and rest the stair climber onto the truck bed. Lift up on the front of the machine and slide it onto the truck using the proper lifting technique. Please note, the crossbar on the stair climber is not designed to be used as a lifting point for winch systems. Also, do not use the auto feed as a lifting point when loading or unloading the machine.